Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Gamma World review. This time, believe it or not, I'm going to talk a little bit about Gamma World 5th Edition, made by, my least favorite company that still makes games, that being Wizards of the Coast. And despite what you guys know, how I feel about this particular company and how I feel about some of the crappy things they've been doing. Way back in 2000, they put this out. Way before they started down that inevitable decline into obscurity. They put out Gamma World 5th Edition. This is just the player's handbook, and for the most part, it's got everything I needed to be able to review it and put in my 2 cents. Now, if you're a fan of D&D 3.0 or the Alternity system or Pathfinder, any of the things like that, and Crunch is your game, then so would this be. If you're looking for a post-apocalyptic campaign to run, or maybe a one-shot, book came out, like I said, in 2000, and this hardcover booked at $34.95, just to give you an idea how much things have changed. Now, this book has got almost everything you'd need to run the game, even as a GM. There is so much in here, not just the characters and the rules for the skills and things like that, but it's also got a healthy set of monsters and robots. Now, why you would put that in a player's handbook, I really don't understand, but I get the impression that they put this out knowing that it was going to be a while before they actually put out the DMG, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. But if that's what they were doing, and that is in fact what they did, okay. And mind you, they've only got about a couple of dozen of the creatures and, half dozen or more robots and things like that. But there's also the equipment and even tips on running a game. I'm just like, you sure this is the player's handbook? But let's get into the things I do like real quick before I tell you all the things that I don't like that you probably can already guess if you've been long-time viewers. I did like the way they handled characters. They're a little bit more complex than I like, but far more complex than some of the previous systems, especially 4th edition, which really made no sense. It was like they couldn't commit completely to making classes or professions, but they also wanted you to make something more than just a mutated human, pure strain human, animal, or plant, or synthetic. One of the things I do like about this is that it gives you all of that, but it also goes into much more detail when it comes to the synthetics, the cyborgs, the androids, the robots, which I think are kind of a no-brainer. Having played Gamma World for so long and had so many players say, hey, can I run a cyborg or a robot or even an android from, leftover from, the before times? Okay, cool. I wish they would have gone into more detail with the equipment, because that's really what this game is about when it comes to treasure and getting things done. Your skills are only going to get you so far in a world full of fallen technology, let's just say. With the post-apocalyptic scenario, you're going to have constant run-ins with people armed with technology or technology itself trying to kill your characters. Now, you really are going to need some tools to fight back with. The psionics edition was barely passable. It's enough to get your feet wet and to run a character with psionics, which, if you think about it, if the society is that far in the future and they're already dealing with nanotechnology and rewriting DNA and all these other things, psionics are kind of a no-brainer. So I'm glad that they did that. The nanotechnology, a little much, but not as much as I remembered. But then again, when I read these books way back in the day, I had more of the books than just the player's handbook. I made the decision at some point to get rid of all those books and I wish I kept them just so I can give you a greater in-depth review, but then I would probably quickly sell them. I'll hang on to this one just for, you know, the bits I was able to pull from it that I might like to add to my post-apocalyptic game if I ever run one. There's enough stuff in here to make it worth reading once. Now, the stuff I did not like I said, too much nanotechnology and too much artificial intelligence in everything from toasters to toothbrushes to, you know, satellites and cyborgs and all these crazy things. You know, of course it was funny in Red Dwarf when you had the talking toaster, but you know, with all those artificial intelligence just going crazy by being left alone, buried under rubble and things like that, it just seems kind of cruel and just a little twisted to constantly having to deal with whatever insanity every single artificial intelligence is going to have developed over the centuries of neglect or abandonment or misuse. The mutations, just not enough of them, and they left out like some of the best ones in lieu of some of the more generic ones that could be, you know, kind of used for different stuff, like you know, body powers, that sort of idea, where you could just have this one mutation will cover a whole bunch of the player's needs, knowing full well that there's going to be, you know, the whole gamut of the missed mutations and more mutations coming out in some other book. They should have focused more attention on the mutations and the mutated animals, rules for making those, and rules for making mutated plants. The robots and cyborgs and all that stuff, not bad, but again, everything is just a little bit too complicated, and reading any of the stat blocks is just aggravating without, you know, really trying to learn the system. In every other edition of Gamma World, things were pretty cut and dried. You could make sense of it, but this just looks like, you know, just lists of abbreviations with numbers ad nauseum and way too complex. Probably one of the many reasons why they shut this down after a few short years. I wish they would have also made things, you know, a little more user friendly. There's a lot of fluff text in here, which is really good actually, and there's also a nice Appendix N style recommended reading, viewing, listening to in here. All that stuff is good. Lots of lore. That's one of the best things that this book has, is in its 200, almost 300 pages, is a crap ton of lore. Mind you, not all the same lore. They had to change things to make it their own from, you know, the old days. The Knights of Genetic Purity are still, you know, what they used to be, but they had to throw in their own little tweaks here and there, and I'm not going to begrudge them that. If you're going to go and write a book this thick and this well put together after 25 years, it's still in really, really good condition. But that's about all I have for you on this one. This one was one of the best when it comes to lore of all the post-apocalyptic games I've read. This one had the most in-depth lore and world setting, if you will. Miguel and Sylvia's book was top-notch, but it was just a little too low-tech and low-key for me. I want the crazy tech. I want the robots. I want the androids. I want the flying ships and flying cities and all that, you know, crazy sci-fi, then fall back to Stone Age, not let's get to the, you know, the year 2025 and then have it all come crashing down, because that's probably too much like the real world, if you know what I mean. But not bad. Maybe even the third or fourth best post-apocalyptic game I'm going to review this year, but definitely not number one. Number one's always going to be Gamma World 2nd Edition, and I might have a couple more Gamma World post-apocalyptic reviews for you in the future, but for now, I'm taking a break because I've got to read the book for the book club, which is tomorrow night, Thursday, at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where the Appendix N book club will meet and review Conan and the Spider God by L. Sprague de Camp. and then we'll get on with the rest of the week, at which point I'll decide whether I'm not going to do any more post-apocalyptic stuff, and I'm going to go into, I'm actually going to be reviewing as many products as I can by our fellow YouTubers, starting out with another Vengeance Satanis book, and then a book by OGGM and a few other YouTubers as the month progresses and as they arrive at my doorstep. So if you guys got any questions or any comments or suggestions, comment section below. Otherwise, have a great evening. I will see you guys tomorrow, and until then, happy trails.